This Road to Prosperity video is sponsored by Vandergraaf. Visit vandergraaf.com to learn more about how their advanced drum motor technology reduces maintenance costs while delivering reliability and longevity for belt conveyors operating in the harshest of environments.
Hey there, Kevin Yanik with Quarry Magazine. Wanted to share some insights based on the latest U.S. Geological Survey of aggregate production statistics. USGS puts out numbers based on crushed stone, sand and gravel, and total construction aggregate production across the U.S., and they do this every quarter. So we're sitting here end of May, early June, and in the latest first quarter 2023 numbers were made available by USGS, and a dig through the report discovers that once again aggregate production was down nationwide. So that's the second quarter in a row we've seen production dip. It wasn't down too much. It was down about 2% nationwide, and it comes on the heels of the fourth quarter of 2022 when we saw aggregate production dip even more at about 7%. So something to keep an eye on is the trend now is that aggregate production is slipping quarter over quarter. First quarter isn't necessarily the big producer in our calendar year. Those are winter months in many regions, colder, wetter months in some parts. So it's not necessarily spring and summer quarters that we're talking about here, but it still is an indicator of how aggregate producers are faring in terms of their volumes across the country. The storyline, if you dig into the numbers for USGS, really is that sand and gravel was the driver of the number going downward in the first quarter, as sand and gravel production was down almost 9%. We saw crushed stone up about 2%. So as you think about aggregate production as a whole moving downward, it was sand and gravel that was kind of pulling it in that downward direction. USGS too, they offer insights by state and by region and division. And I was curious what states were kind of helping to bring those numbers down a little bit. So I looked into aggregate production and what was happening there, by region and by division. And if you look out west, it seems like production took a dip a little bit. There's a Pacific division that USGS tracks. The Pacific division consists of California, Oregon, and Washington. And aggregate production in that division in the first quarter was down almost 25%. So that's a significant drop. Again, it's just one quarter, so there's potential there that that weather was a factor. There's potential too that the demand just wasn't there in the first quarter of 23 that was there in the first quarter of 22. But as you dig in a little bit to the data from USGS, you find that of those three Pacific states, California, Oregon, and Washington, California's aggregate production total for the first quarter was down about a third. It was down 32%. And Washington State was down as well. It was down about 16% in the first quarter, with Oregon hanging in there with just a 3% dip. So California, obviously a big producer of aggregates nationwide, and one that we're kind of always keeping an eye on. It's seen some significant dips early here in 2023 in its aggregate production. On the plus side, it wasn't all bad nationwide. We saw the Midwest make some gains. Producers in that region make some gains. USGS, just like they do with that division out in the Pacific Northwest, they've got a Midwestern division that they characterize as the West North Central, and it consists of states like Iowa, Kansas, Minnesota, and that division was actually up 28% in the first quarter. Minnesota was up a staggering 80% in terms of its aggregate production, with Iowa up about 53%. So good gains there, almost so big that, again, it's probably a telling sign that weather was a factor either this first quarter of 23 or potentially in the first quarter of 2022, too cold, too wet, too snowy, that potentially production was limited. But one way or another, good gains made there in parts of the Midwest. So storyline we've heard quite a bit here in 2023 as we've looked at the public producer reports is how companies are making good gains. They're profitable. Their profitability is very much dependent on pricing, and that's a factor that's driven some gains upward. We saw some of the public producers of aggregates share how production volumes were down in the first quarter. And again, this USGS report just reinforces that production nationwide was down somewhat for our industry. So again, as I said at the outset, the numbers aren't necessarily super alarming here. It's a little bit concerning to see these numbers go down. We're coming off some years, 20, 21, 22, where we've made very good gains in aggregate production. So again, 2 consecutive quarters of dips in aggregate production. Something we'll want to keep an eye on in the second quarter of 22 is, we've got high production months nationwide, April, May, and June. We'll probably get those numbers here in another 3 months out in August or so. So we'll have some feedback there from USGS based on their survey of aggregate producers. And once that's made available for the second quarter, we'll have some more information to share. But just wanted to get you some insights about the first quarter, and what we're seeing is that aggregate production is down. Sand and gravel is the biggest driver of it downward, and something to keep an eye on as we go forward.
Thank you to Vandergraaf for sponsoring this Road to Prosperity video. To learn more about how their advanced drum motor technology reduces maintenance costs while delivering reliability and longevity for belt conveyors operating in the harshest of environments, visit vandergraaf.com.